3, 4.
I'm so in love with you. Whatever you want to do is alright with me. 'Cause you make me feel so brand new. I want to spend my life with you. Pain. All of a sudden you hear, then that was the end of that. You hear something hit the floor, boom, and that was the end of that. I said, what's that noise? She said, sound like gunshots. I said, this can't be that. Come on, this is ridiculous. This thing is going crazy.
At 78 years old, Al Green has finally admitted the awful truth. Many people love his soulful music. However, behind the success, there were many hidden traumas, tragedy, and struggles.
But I ask people today, I'll sneak off and ask the chief of police today, who's a good friend of mine. I says, did this actually, or was she faking? Or was she joking? I don't, that's unbelievable.
This has led critics to call him one of the last great mysteries in soul music. Can sharing the truth now bring him peace and healing in his life? Let's find out. Green was incredibly traumatized and devastated by the terrible events of the last few years. It appeared that everywhere he turned, he was met with violence, destruction, and tragedy. And so many people regard these terrible experiences as what turned Al Green back towards the church and a life of devout Christianity, just like he had grown up with, but moved away from. If you listen through the lyrics and melodies of Let's Stay Together, you can almost hear him reaching for something deeper, more complex in the affection of La La for You.
All I can say, yeah.
Or Resignation of So You're Leaving. Born on April 13th, 1946, in Forest City, Arkansas. He was the 6th child in a big family of 10 children. His parents, Cora Lee and Robert G. Green Jr., worked hard. Robert was a sharecropper, which means he farmed land that didn't belong to him, giving most of what he grew to the landowner. When Al was about 10 years old, he started to perform music with his sister. They called themselves the Green Brothers. Music became a big part of Al's life early on. However, Al's teenage years were tough. He got kicked out of his family home after his father, who was very religious, found out that Al was listening to music by Jackie Wilson, a popular singer. Al then moved in with a pea institute and started living a wild life, which included hustling and trying drugs. Despite these struggles, music was always important to him. He loved listening to gospel music, especially Mahalia Jackson. But he also admired the rock and roll stars like Elvis Presley and Wilson Pickett. He even said that when he was 13, he would buy anything Elvis had. While in high school, Al formed a vocal group called Al Green and the Creations. He worked with his friends Curtis Rogers and Palmer James. They had a dream to make it big in music. In 1966, they changed their name to Al Green and the Soulmates and recorded a song called Backup Train. This song became popular on the R&B charts and even made it to #1, 46 in the Cashbox Top 100. Sadly, their other songs in their first album didn't do as well. During his time with the Soulmates, Al met Willie Mitchell, a producer from Memphis. Willie saw talent in Al and asked him to sing with his band for a show in Texas in 1969. After the performance, Willie wanted Al to join his record label, High Records. This was a big moment for Al, as it opened the door for him to become a famous artist.
Came over. I said, what you say your name was? He said, Al Green.
I said, man, you got a beautiful voice. I said, you can cut a hit record. I said, why don't you go back to Memphis with me, and if we work real hard, I said, we can cut some hit records.
But before he became a big star, he had to find his own voice. When he started singing, he tried to sound like famous artists like Jackie Wilson, Sam Cooke, Wilson Pickett, and James Brown. These singers had great voices, and Al admired them a lot. However, he needed to develop his own style to stand out. That's when he met a man named Mitchell, who became his vocal mentor. Mitchell helped Al learn how to express himself and find his true voice.
He says, well, boy, you could be a star in about, not long. I said, well, how long would it take? He says, 2 years. I said, well, sorry, I don't have enough time. I left.
Before releasing his first album, Al made a small change to his name. He removed the final E, so he became simply Al Green. This change marked the beginning of his journey to fame. Later, Al released his first album with High Records called Green is Blues. It was a moderate success, but it helped him get noticed in the music world. Things really took off with his second album, Al Green Gets Next to You. This album included a famous R&B cover of the Temptations song, I Can't Get Next to You, which Al sang in a slower, bluesy style. Another hit from this album was Tired of Being Alone. This song was a big hit, selling over 1 million copies and becoming gold. This was just the beginning. Between 3 years, Al released 8 gold singles.
I'm crying to you, Lord, all through the years, I tell you like you did, won't you?
Al released another album called Let's Stay Together. This album was a major success. The title track became his biggest hit, reaching #1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 and R&B charts. It was the first album that got a gold certification, showing that it sold many copies. His follow-up album, I'm Still in Love with You, came out and went platinum. This album had hits like Look What You Done For Me and the title track, both of which were in the top 10 of the Hot 100.
Oh, baby, what you done for me?
Al continued to release hit albums and produce 3 top 10 singles, You Ought to Be With Me, Call Me, and Here I Am. Along with these hits, he had other popular songs like Love and Happiness and Take Me to the River. The latter song was so good that it was later covered by a new wave band called Talking Heads and blues artist Syl Johnson. By December 1973, Al's album Livin' For You was also certified gold. He continued to make great music, with hits like Sha-La-La Makes Me Happy and Let's Get Married. But things started to change. Al released the Bell album, but his record sales dropped. This was partly due to personal issues and his desire to become a minister. His last album with High Records, Truth in Time, released also did not do well.
I said, what's that? She says, I love you. I said, well, okay, great. Then you love me, I like you too. So I ain't no problem.
Al Green faced a shocking and terrible event with Mary Woodson, a woman he once loved. One day while he was at home in Memphis, Woodson attacked him with boiling grits. This awful act left Green with severe burns on his back, which needed a lot of medical care. After the attack, Woodson went into another room and sadly shot herself with Green's gun. Green explained that he met Woodson at a prison concert, one of the charitable works he liked to do on free days. Green had no idea that this radiant and ravishing woman, who said she was visiting a friend at the facility, was really a married mother of 2 children living in New Jersey.
Problem with it. But see, there's one thing she didn't tell me. I find out after the incident happened that she was married, had 3 kids. I didn't know none of these things. I asked her, before when I first met her, I said, are you married? She says, no.
Their relationship blossomed after Green invited Woodson to a performance in San Francisco. A few days after he returned to Memphis, Woodson called to say she was in town. Green later admitted that his infatuation with Woodson made him ignore the spooky feeling he had when she talked with conviction about things to come in the future. Green was in a Memphis recording studio when he got a call from a sheriff who said Woodson had been arrested at the Peabody Hotel for smoking marijuana. Green smoothed things over by going to the police station, and Woodson was released. The two returned to the studio where Green hoped to calm Woodson with his music. It apparently worked. According to Green, his friend who was a flight attendant, Carlotta Williams, later dropped in unannounced and greeted Green with a big hug. Though Green was concerned given Woodson's state of mind, the two women seemed to hit it off, and they both returned to Green's home after the session. Green wrote that he made clear to the women that his home had many spare bedrooms, and he had not planned some kind of kinky encounter. Although Al noticed that Mary seemed a bit uneasy when he found her stirring a pot of boiling water. Suddenly, she asked him a surprising question. "Al, honey, have you ever thought of getting married?" Al was taken aback. "Married? Maybe we should talk about this in the morning, baby," he replied, not wanting to dive into that topic at that moment. They shared a kiss, and Mary whispered, "You know, Al, I would never do anything to hurt you." Al felt confused but thought everything was fine, so he went upstairs to take a shower.
And she says, "Well, I love you, and I don't want to, to go on without you, and to be involved in anything else doesn't mean anything."
While he was brushing his teeth, he suddenly heard a noise behind him. He looked in the mirror and saw Mary holding the hot pot of water. In an instant, everything changed. Mary had mixed grits into the boiling water, creating a thick paste, and she threw it at him. The pain was overwhelming as the hot mixture hit his back. He couldn't comprehend what had just happened. His screams filled the house, alerting Williams, who quickly opened her bedroom door. Green rushed past her and stumbled into the bathroom. Williams helped him into the bathtub and turned on the cold shower to ease his burning skin. As Al was in the shower, he screamed again, bending over in pain. Suddenly, he heard loud bangs, and it sounded like something heavy had fallen to the ground. He looked at Williams, and they both knew something terrible was happening. Mary had run into another room after hurting him.
"Just get me to the hospital." I says, "I am hurting." See? And by then, man, I had big boils all over my back, man.
In that room, Mary grabbed Al's gun and fired one shot into the wall before turning the gun on herself. A suicide note was later found in her purse, revealing that she had tried to take her life days before by taking sleeping pills and cutting her wrists. Al was rushed to the hospital where he underwent several skin grafts to heal his burns. His recovery took a long time, 8 months, during which he spent a lot of time reading the Bible and praying. Al had become a born-again Christian a year before the incident, and this faith helped him find peace during his painful recovery. He realized that music and his spiritual well-being were both important in his life. Over the years, many hip-hop artists, like Usher and R. Kelly, mentioned Al's shocking experience in their songs. For example, in one song, Method Man raps about being as hot as Al Green after the Grits incident. While some referenced it in a lighthearted way, Al knew the seriousness of what happened that night. Green has also faced accusations of domestic violence from various women over the years. These allegations, though often kept private, occasionally surfaced in the media, painting a picture of the complex and sometimes troubled relationships he had. These accusations are serious and have followed him through different stages of his life, often casting a shadow over his personal life. Green was married multiple times, and some of these relationships ended in claims of domestic disputes. Some of the women he was involved with have shared their experiences publicly, describing the physical and emotional difficulties they went through during their time with him. Green married his first wife, Shirley Green, in Memphis. She was one of his backing vocalists and an employee at his church. Together, they have 3 daughters. Shirley first filed for divorce on the ground of cruelty and irreconcilable differences. She filed again for a second time, charging that Green had subjected her to domestic violence throughout their marriage. Green accused her of cruel and inhuman treatment in a counter-complaint. In a sworn deposition as part of her divorce filing, Shirley testified that while she was 5 months pregnant, Green beat her with a boot for refusing to have sex. She claimed that the assault resulted in head wounds, one of which required stitches. After the incident, she filed for divorce, but they reconciled. According to Shirley, they separated several times when the beatings became too frequent and too severe. Initially, Green denied beating his wife, but under oath in 1982, he admitted to striking her. Their divorce was finalized in February 1983. Green agreed to pay her $432,800 in alimony and child support. Later on, the story of Nicole Brown Simpson inspired Shirley to go public with the abuse she endured in order to help other victims. Green was reportedly remarried by the 1990s. Another of the most well-known cases involves his former secretary, Linda Wills. In 1974, Wills filed a $25,000 civil lawsuit against Green, accusing him of physical assault. She claimed that, after a disagreement over back pay, Green attacked her and even shoved her through a glass door in his Memphis office. This civil lawsuit ended up being dropped due to conflicting testimony, which means that the statements given by different people did not match up. However, Green decided to settle another lawsuit related to this case. He agreed to pay $100,000 to settle charges of assault and battery. This wasn't the only incident Green faced. In another case, he and his former organ player, Larry Robinson, were both arrested after an altercation in Texas. Robinson claimed that Green and his bodyguards had attacked him during an argument about money owed from past performances. Green and Robinson were both released after posting bond on a misdemeanor charge. But this event added to the list of conflicts surrounding Green's life and work. Then in 1978, Green was charged with assault and battery again. This time, he was accused of attacking Lovie Smith, reportedly beating her unconscious with a tree limb. However, the charges were eventually dismissed. Smith had moved away and missed the court date because she didn't receive a subpoena, which is a legal document that orders a person to appear in court. Without her testimony, the case couldn't proceed, so the charges were dropped. These incidents have shown a darker side of Green's life, contrasting with his public image as a talented musician. Days after Green was released from Baptist Memorial Hospital, Memphis, where he was treated for his burns, he was reportedly held hostage at gunpoint by his cousin, who claimed he owed her money. Green refused to press charges. By 1976, Al Green had become an ordained minister and purchased a church called the Full Gospel Tabernacle in Memphis. He continued to preach when he wasn't on tour. Something else happened that changed Green's life even more. While he was performing on stage, he had a terrible fall. This fall was so serious that it made him stop and think deeply about his life. He took it as a message from God, a sign that he needed to focus fully on gospel music and faith. To him, this fall was like a push from God to leave behind his pop career and use his voice for a different purpose.
Into the religious segment, not because I wanted to, but it was the calling, the drawing card to me to come into it. If I accept it, do it. If you're not going to accept it, refuse.
From that point on, Green dedicated himself to gospel music, which is a style that celebrates faith in God. He felt that this was his true path, and he wanted to make music that lifted people's spirits and connected them with faith, but at the same time, he was known and loved worldwide for his soulful R&B music. Balancing these two parts of himself, being a popular musician and a preacher, was not easy.
One year I'm a rock star, the next year I'm a gospel preacher. This is, I don't understand, you know, so anyway.
Fans still wanted him to perform his old hits, and many people in the music industry thought he should stick with what made him famous. But Al Green wanted to be true to his faith, even if it meant stepping away from his old style.
To one. As we may know that
This back and forth between R&B and gospel became a big part of Al Green's life. Sometimes he would release a soul album, and other times he would sing only gospel. It was as if he had two sides, one side that loved R&B and another side that wanted to serve God through gospel music. For Al, it was never about abandoning one for the other. He was just trying to find peace between them. Each time he performed, he carried this struggle within him. He wanted to make music that felt honest to him, but also didn't want to disappoint the people who had supported him all these years. Aside from the allegations of domestic violence, Al Green faced some tough financial challenges. He struggled behind the scenes with money issues, and this time around it was with some members of his own church. At that time, he was not just a music artist, but also a gospel minister. He had his own congregation and took his role as a church leader seriously. However, some church members believed that he was not managing church funds properly. They claimed that he was using church money for his own personal expenses rather than for church-related activities. This was a serious allegation, as many people trust their pastors and ministers to use donations and funds responsibly. These church members ended up taking Green to court over these financial issues. They wanted answers and felt that taking legal action was the only way to get them. This was a difficult period for Green, as he had to defend himself against people from his own congregation. For someone in his position, these accusations were damaging. They put a strain on his reputation as a minister, creating doubt in the minds of some fans and churchgoers. However, before things got too far, Green and his accusers were able to reach a settlement out of court. This means that instead of going through a full trial, both parties came to an agreement privately. Although the exact details of the settlement were not made public, the case was closed, and Green did not have to face further legal battles over this issue. Settling out of court is common in such situations, as it allows both sides to avoid a long and stressful legal process. Despite the settlement, these events left a mark on Green's public image. On one hand, people admired him as a soulful gospel minister who shared uplifting messages. On the other hand, this legal and financial trouble showed a different side of his life. It reminded people that even public figures and respected leaders can face serious challenges. For Green, this added complexity to his public persona. He was no longer seen as just a music legend or a gospel minister, but as a person with his own struggles and flaws.
This broken man.
Maybe all the traumas and struggles made some people say he can be tough to work with. Over the years, former band members and people who work closely with him have shared stories about his behavior. They describe Green as someone with a strong personality, and sometimes he showed a quick temper or sudden mood changes. These swings made things hard for those around him. People believe Green's fame and the pressures he faced in his personal life only added to these problems. With so many eyes on him and so much expected of him, it's no wonder he might have felt stressed or overwhelmed. Fame can make anyone act differently, and for Green, it sometimes showed in ways that others found hard to handle. One thing that makes Al Green even more interesting, though, is that he hasn't shared much about his struggles or reasons for his behavior. Unlike some other famous people, he keeps his personal challenges private. This has led fans and critics to call him one of the last great mysteries in soul music. While we all know his songs and his talent, we don't know much about the man behind the music. Looking to the future, Al Green has built a lasting legacy in soul music. Green was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He was referred to on the museum site as being one of the most gifted purveyors of soul music. He has also been referred to as the last of the great soul singers. Green is the winner of 11 Grammy Awards, including the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. He has also received the BMI Icon Award and is a Kennedy Center Honors recipient. He was included in the Rolling Stone list of the 100 greatest artists of all time, ranking at number 65, as well as its list of the 200 greatest singers of all time at number. His challenges didn't stop him, though. They became a part of his story.
You can't give up, and you got to work 2 times as hard as your next person.
In his autobiography, Green reflects on the importance of choices. He writes, "None of us can say what the plan of God may be for our lives, but I do know this. The choices we make follow after us, lifting us up or dragging us down." These words show how deeply he thinks about life and its direction. As Al Green looks forward, his future is in his own hands. His past may have had difficult moments, but he keeps moving forward with hope and faith.